Hello, my name's Evan Lewis, and welcome back to Cincinnati Museum Center's Story Tree Time. This week's story tree is this tree. It's called the Bicycle Tree, and it's located near Brigo-Turk, Scotland. It's called the Bicycle Tree because there's a bicycle in the tree. Look at that. Wow. That's a good tree. All right, like always, we need to do a quick breathing exercise before we can begin. So I need you to take a deep breath in. Somehow, for some reason, it's still your birthday for the third week in a row, and someone says they're going to give you a giraffe, and you're surprised because giraffes belong in their natural environment and not your backyard. And breathe out. Like you are relieved when that someone reveals that it's actually a life-size giraffe stuffed animal, which is fine. So, one more time. Breathe in. And out. Giraffely calm. Giraffely? Is that a word? Anyway, so I am wearing all of my most adventurous clothes today because our book today is all about adventure. I have my adventurer's hat on, which my dad gave me. Thank you, Dad. And I'm wearing this nautical themed shirt coat because nautical themed things are usually an adventure of some kind. Okay, this week's book is an ebook instead of an actual book. So when I would normally hold up the book, I can't do that. So imagine there's a book here and it's called Marcus and the Storm, and then we just start reading it. Let's do that. Marcus and the Storm by Todd Miyashiro. On sunny days, Marcus walked home. His favorite path took him through the woods. When he reached the edge of the trees, he always stopped. He sat down on the ground. With great care, he took off his boots. He placed them one at a time into his backpack. He closed the flap and fastened the buckles. Marcus stood up. He wriggled his feet and felt the air around his toes. He took a deep breath and sighed. And then he stepped into the woods. Marcus jumped over the gnarled, twisting tree roots. Crouching low, he watched minnows flit about in the little creek. He stood still in the clearing and felt the sunlight on his face. Marcus followed a line of boulders up the hill. He could get all the way to the top with no hands. Marcus made his way across the climbing tree. He squeezed and squelched and squirmed through a crevice in the rocks. He crawled on his hands and knees beneath the underbrush and only got lost once. He heard crows caw above the fallen oak. At the edge of the field was a fence that led back to his yard. He climbed up one side and looked back for a moment. He took a deep breath and sighed. Then Marcus jumped down and headed off into the yard. One day, when Marcus got to the edge of the woods, he froze. Above him was a gigantic storm cloud, swirling and roiling and booming. Marcus watched the storm grow larger and larger until it filled the sky. He couldn't move. Rain came crashing down. It fell on his hair and face. It soaked through his clothes. He watched it hit the ground, spitting and splattering as it went. He watched the puddles cover his boots. He sat down on the ground. With great care, he took off his boots. He placed them one at a time into his backpack. He closed the flap and fastened the buckles. Marcus stood up. He wriggled his feet and felt the rain around his toes. He took a deep breath and sighed. And then he stepped into the woods. Marcus found pools of water between the tree roots. The tiny creek had become a rushing river. He felt the strong current pull at his legs.
In the clearing, he stood still and felt the rain cover his body. The boulders were so slick, Marcus had to clamber up on all fours. As he made his way across the climbing tree, his foot slipped on wet bark. The rocky crevice was cool and dry. Marcus squirmed through the dark. Marcus crawled beneath the underbrush. He got lost twice because he couldn't see very well. He listened to thunder booming above the fallen oak. At the edge of the field, Marcus climbed the fence and looked back for a moment. The storm was moving away. Marcus gave a little wave. The clouds boomed in the distance. Then Marcus jumped down and headed off into the yard. The end.
Wasn't that a good book? That's actually a little wide. It's probably about this big. I love that Marcus is undaunted by maybe dangerous weather. It's storming right now. Ooh, spooky, serendipitous. Not really. I chose to record this during a storm. But I think this is a wonderful book, and it really encourages exploring your backyard a little bit more in maybe a few more weatherly situations than you've given it the shrift to do before. Thank you for watching. If you like this Story Tree Time, tune in every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on the CMC Facebook page or Instagram, and there will be another one waiting for you, hopefully. And until then, I'll see you later. Goodbye.